श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। क्रतुण्डमहाकाय सूर्यकोटिसमप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्ये सर्वदा। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। गुरवे सर्वलोकानां भिषजगौरवगुणां निधे सर्वविद्यानां श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम्। व्यासाय विष्णुरूपाय व्यासरूपाय विष्णवे नमो वै ब्रह्मणे वासिष्ठाय नमो नमः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणे स्वयं व्यासेन कृतितं पुराणमुनिनां मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीमष्टादशाध्यायिनीं अम्बा त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवेद्वेषिणी। नारायणपरो व्यक्तादण्डमव्यक्तसमोमण्डस्यान्तस्तु मे लोकः सप्तद्वीपा च मेदिनी। अवतीर्णश्च कालट्यां केदारेन्तरहितश्च याशितस्पीठप्रतिष्ठादाचेतः शङ्करो गुरुः। शङ्खारूपेण वच्चित्तं भङ्गीकृतमुबोध्य किङ्किरीस्तधामाय शङ्कराचार्यमाश्रये. So previously we were looking at Shloka 60 to 63, I think. So that's on back of explaining how devotion can help in controlling the senses, sensory organs and senses. Right. So we're looking at in the 61st Shloka, we looked at Tani Sarvani Samyamya Yukta Asita Matpara, where Bhagavan says, Krishna says that Yukta Asita Matpara. So you think about me always. That will Vajahi Yasendriyani Tasya Prajna Pratishtita. So like that, you will control your senses, your indriyas. So we look at over the next shlokas, two shlokas, what happens if those indriyas are not controlled, right? So in the next two shlokas, we were looking at what happens if those are not controlled, right? So Isha Vijantunda Sangas Teshopajate, Sanga Sangjate Kama Kamo Bodha Sanga Sangjate Kama Kamat Krodho Vijayate. Krodhat Bhavate Sammoha, Sammohat Spritibhrama, Spritibhramshat Buddhinasho, Buddhinashat Pranashyati. Right? So we're looking at those shlokas in detail last time. So we looked at the first part of this shloka, so where we look at in the case of the person who dwells on the objects, the specialities, objects of like sound and etc., there arises the attachment, the sangha, and hankering of those, the attachment for that, the love for that, the fondness for those objects. And from those objects, from that attachment, from that love, it grows, sanjayate, it grows kamaha. So from there it grows hankering, thirst for it. I want it, I definitely want it kind of thing. And then from that desire, from that kama, when it is obstructed by any quarter, from that kama, abhijayate, springs krodha. From that, anger comes. So that's what we looked at. From krodha, from anger follows sammoha, delusion, the absence of discrimination with regard to what should be and should not be done. So that discrimination disappears when the anger comes, because we all said, right? I was angry. I didn't even think, right? That's what we say. So that's what here it is. What should be and should not be done. That discrimination, even in simple laukika in our worldly affairs, we don't have those things, right? So we do something in anger. So think about when the person is trying to have this Atma Jnana, when that supreme realization, the anger can go do to those persons, right? So in that state. So that's why this anger brings some moha, delusion it brings. And from that angry man becoming deluded, he becomes abusers of even the teacher. That's what Shankaracharya says. Even gurus are abused by such a person. So from that delusion comes the failure of memory, Spruti Vibhramaha, the failure of memory, which is again that memory. Here we are talking about not any other. I remember this old movie song, or I remember this food I ate in that restaurant, or those kind of things. It is not that. What Shankaracharya says here is the smriti here, smriti bhramsha, the memory, what we are talking about here is the one that's acquired from the instructions of the scripture, Shastras, and from Guru Upadesha, Samskaras. So, Shastra Acharyopadesha Shahita, Samskara Janitayaha, Smritehe Syat, Vibhramo Bhramshaha. So, it's memory that's of those things which is useful, that's going to stay with you for birth after birth. So those things are the one that's going to be destroyed by this sammoha, from this delusion. So when there is an occasion for memory to rise, it does not occur. When you want to remember those things, when you want to do those things, it does not come up. So that spriti bhramsha, that failure of memory, results in buddhinasha, the loss of understanding. Buddhi here is understanding. So buddhinasha, so it's loss of that understanding. The unfitness of mind to discriminate between what should and should not be done is called loss of understanding. So karya vishaya viveka yogyata antakaranasya buddhirnasha uchyate. So what should and should not be done, karya. So that viveka, that understanding, that discriminating power, viveka is here in discriminating power, that viveka yogyata, that's lost, is called buddhinasha. So when that memory or the learnings are lost, the whatever from the Shastras learning or Guru Upadeshas or truth that has come through the samskaras is lost because of delusion. From that, it results in the buddhinasha. So we looked at from krodha follows delusion in the form of the discrimination power, what should and should not be done, that's lost. From that delusion, which is the failure of memory, deviation, going astray. From that, what's taught by the scriptures and the teacher is lost, right? So from that smriti bhramsha, from that memory loss, failure of memory, results in buddhinasha. Right, so which is again in the form of non-duality to Atma. So that buddhi disappears, and even when that understanding has emerged, it disappears on account of inability to bear the fruit. So we are looking at that. So from the buddhinasha, from that loss of understanding, pranashyati, he perishes. So Bhagavan here says, once buddhinasha happens, that person perishes. So Acharya here in his Bhashya here explains that the man continues to be himself as long as his mind remains fit to distinguish between what should and should not be done. Okay, so as long as one can distinguish between what should and should not be done, he continues to be himself. Otherwise, when he becomes unfit for that, that man is certainly ruined. That's why when his internal organ, his understanding is destroyed, that man is ruined. That is, he becomes unfit for the human goal. Again, here we are saying unfit, is ruined, or pranashyati, he perishes. All these things we are saying is unfit for the human goal. Human goal is that realization that Ahameva Atma, I am that supreme being, right? So that realization, he becomes unfit. So tavadehi purushaha yavadantak tadiyam karyakara vishaya viveka yogyam tada yogyatve nashta eva purusho bhavati atha tasyantakarnasya buddhirnashat pranashyati purushartha yogyo bhavati iti artha. So purushartha, so that human goal, supreme human goal, he becomes unfit for that. So when that buddhinasha happens, he becomes unfit. So from loss of understanding. From buddhinasha, one perishes. So one perishes, one becomes unfit for all the human goals as a result of losing that understanding, which is result of the memory, which is comes from the scriptures, the guru upadesha, samskaras, and things like that. So anyone in this world who has become unfit for the human goal is referred to as certainly dead. From a Shastra's point of view, even though they are living, they are breathing, eating, and doing things that we see as worldly things, from a Shastra's point of view, they are considered dead because they are unfit for the human goal. So that's why here it is said that he perishes, pranashyati. So because it is said like that, even one who has controlled the external organs, there comes great grief in the absence of control of the mind. So that's why one should control the mind with great effort. And that's the idea here given in this shloka, that one should control the mind. Because in the previous shlokas, it said that you should control the indriyas, right? So if you control the objects, your hand, eyes, your ears, and whatever you controlled, right? That's not alone is sufficient. You should control the mind as well. That's why it's been said previously in the 61st shloka, Tani sarvani samyamya yukta asita matpara vajai yasyendriyani tasya prajna pratishtita. So controlling all of them and becoming concentrated, one should remain seated. Right? So yukta asita matpara. So this sequence of kama, krodha, buddhinasha, and these things, not just in Bhagavad Gita, it's been repeated everywhere in the Shastras, in the Puranas, and everywhere, Smritis, and everywhere, because that's the core message that all these Shastras give us. For example, in Skanda Purana, there is a story of Shiva burning Kama, right? Burning Madana. So when he burns him, but at that time Brahma and others come and request Shiva to revive Madana and marry Parvati. At that time Shiva says, Kamo hi narakayaiva tasmat krodho vijate krodhat bhavati sammoha sammohat brahmate manaha. So Kama leads to hell. From it, Kama, the anger produced, and confusion, bewilderment results from that anger, and mind wills on account of that bewilderment, and from lust and anger. That's why both should be avoided and abandoned. That's what Shiva says when he was asked to marry Parvati. Right? So through these two shlokas, Bhagavan explains that it is important to control the mind as well, because otherwise it will result in this kama, krodha, buddhinasha, and then ultimately pranashyati, is perishes. That person becomes unfit for purushartha. So that's what explains. Now we look at Bhagavan explaining what happens when the senses are controlled. Okay, so we looked at how to control the senses, saying matpara, so think about Vasudeva. What happens if we don't do it? Right? So kama, krodha, buddhinasha, all these things, we had looked at that. Now he explains, so thinking about the objects that has been said to be root of all the evils, right? So thinking about these sense objects is the root of all the evils, right? Sarvanartasya moolamuktam vishayabhidhyanam. So vishayabhidhyanam. So thinking about the vishayas is the root of all the anarthas. So all the root of all the evils, right? So it is the moola. So that is what Bhagavan has said. So after saying that, this, which is again the cause of moksha, is now he explains. So what is the cause of moksha, right? So he starts explaining that in the next slokas. So he explains for the next 8 verses. He explains Vrajeta Kim, how does he move about, kind of the answers, right? If you remember Arjuna's questions, so out of 4 questions, the last one here, Vrajeta Kim. So that's being explained in the next 4 shlokas. So, sorry, next 8 slokas. So, 64th shloka goes like this. Ragadvesha ragadvesha vimuktaistu vishayan indriyai charan atmavaishair vidheyatma prasadam adhigacchati. So, by perceiving the objects with organs that are free from attraction and repulsion and under his own control, the self-controlled man attains serenity. So that's the literal meaning of that shloka. So raga is attachment, dvesha is aversion, viyuktai means free, tu means but, vishayan means objects of senses, indriya means by the senses, charan means by while using, atma vishayehi means controlling one's mind, means controlling one's mind, videyatma means one who controls the mind, prasadam means grace of Bhagavan, adhigacchati means attains. So if you look at the explanation and details for this shloka, here Acharya explains that certainly the functions of the organs are naturally preceded by attraction and repulsion. Right? So whatever the sense organs we got, they are either we like them or we don't like them. When it is like that, by perceiving those objects which are unavoidable, okay, even for the yogi, even for a sannyasi, it is unavoidable, right? So they will come across those things, they will hear things, they will see things, they will smell, they have to taste or touch or whatever, right? It could be anything, right? So it doesn't have to, when I say touch, it should not be anything kama related, lust related, right? It could be anything. It could be an attachment to an animal, right? You might like a deer, you might like a cow, or you might like a dog or whatever, right? It could be anything, right? So all those attachments, objects, vishayas, which are unavoidable. So when by perceiving those objects with the organs, such as ear and things like that, ragadvesha viyuktaihi. So with the organs, when they are perceived with those objects that are free from attraction and repulsion, so when by perceiving those objects with that are free from attraction and repulsion, and one who is under one's own control, atmavashyehi, one who is under his own control, that self-controlled man, whose mind can be subdued at will, is the seeker after the moksha. So that's what he said here. So such a person who has self-control, who is that self-control mind, the person who has the self-controlled mind, and such a person who is the seeker of the moksha attains serenity, self-poise. So prasada here is not food that is given at the temples after the pujas. It is self-poise, it is the serenity, chitta nairmalya, so purity of the mind. So atma vishaya is in the sense that here with the organs under the control of the mind, right? So atma vishaya means the senses of senses under the control of the mind, right? So atma, it's coming under that control. So then again, Bhagavan here argues that if mind not under control, then there is no real control over the organs. So that's why here the text here uses the second expression, vidheyatma. Vidheyatma means whose mind can be subdued at will. So he can control his mind at will. So first, your sense organs are controlled by mind, and then your mind you can control at will. Whenever you want, you can control. So when you have that control, he's here. So such a person attains prasadam. So he attains adhigacchati, prasadam adhigacchati. He attains serenity. So here again, atma here is talked as atmavashya, Okay, so is this and Videyatma. So here the word Atma is used in the sense of mind. What as a Atma we looked at previously in the terms of self. Okay, self with S capital. So it is not in that sense. It is Atma here considered used in the sense of mind. So the one who controls his mind, one who has his mind under full control. So the one who has uncontrolled mind, that person, even having controlled the external organs, becomes deprived of that purushartha human goal because he is thinking about the objects with mind polluted by attraction and repulsion. So here again the word tu is used, the but is used, distinguishing from the previous person. The previous person we were talking about was the one who is kama, krodha, buddhinasha, all those things, right? So the person whose mind is not under control. So it is different, but a person, the person who has self-controlled man, the Videyatma, who has internal organs under control, by perceiving these Vishayas, by perceiving these objects, like through his senses, uh, the sound, smell, etc., which are those objects, as I said, is not prohibited. You can't avoid those things with his sense organs. When he perceives those things, then when those organs, which are under full control of his mind and are free from attractions, okay, free from their viyukta ragadvesha, so they are free from attraction and repulsion, right? So he has his indriyas, even though they are seeing those things, they are hearing those things, they are touching or smelling or whatever it is through those sense organs, these vishayas, he is perceiving them, still his organs are fully under his control of this mind. Okay, he is free from attraction and repulsion, ragadvesha. He is viyukta ragadvesha. So that's why that person attains serenity, purity of the mind. He becomes fit for realizing the supreme self. He is Paramatma. So again, organs that are impelled by the attraction and repulsion become cause of evil. So when mind is the one's controller, when the mind is in one's control, the attraction repulsion do not exist. So when they are absent, there is no activity for the organs to under their sway, right? So that's why by perceiving these objects, it does not bring any evil. Even that person, the sannyasi who has his mind under control, even though he sees something very attaching, very attracting, or something he hates or something, his mind is not disturbed by those things. So that's why he answers here saying, how does he move about? Bhagavan answers saying that he answers that person, he perceives the objects through the organs that are under his control. So that's what Bhagavan explains. Now the question comes, what happens when that serenity is achieved? What happens to that person? Right? So that's the question that comes. So that's explained in the next shloka, in the 65th shloka. Bhagavan explains, prasade sarva dukkhanam hanirasyopajaayate prasanna chetaso hashu buddhi paryavatishtete. So when there is serenity, there follows eradication of all the sorrows, because the wisdom of the one who has that serene mind soon becomes firmly established. So prasade means by that divine grace, sarva means all, dukkhana means sorrows, hanihi means destruction, asya means his, upajayate means comes, prasanna chetasa means with tranquil mind, he means indeed, ashu means soon, buddhi means intellect, paryavastite means becomes firmly established. So here, when that serenity, when there is serenity, when prasade, when there is serenity, there follows the eradication of all his, that is, the sannyasis, sorrow on the physical and other planes. So whether it is any form of sorrows disappeared, sarva dukkhanam, right? So that sannyasis, all the sorrows disappear. And moreover, this is also because the wisdom of the one who has serene mind, the one whose mind is poised in the Atma, soon becomes firmly established, remains steady. Avatishtade. So avatishtade means totally, pari means totally. So it's pari avasthite, avatishtade means, so it is totally remains steady in there. Like that is, it becoming unmoving in its very nature as Atma. So it always remains steady. The meaning of this sentence again is like this: since the person with such a poised mind and well-established wisdom attains fulfillment, therefore, a man of concentration, the man who is free from slavery to the objects of senses, such a person should he ought to deal with indispensable and scripturally non-forbidden objects through his senses that are free from love and hatred. So he should ought to deal with, such a person of man of concentration ought to deal with the indispensable and scripturally non-forbidden objects through his senses, so that are free from love and hatred. So that's what Shankaracharya explains here. When there is this serene mind, in the form of purity, there follows the eradication of all the sorrows of that person, and that sannyasi, because of that, the wisdom, the buddhi, the intellect of that, in the form of the identity of the Paramatma, identifying that self with himself with that Paramatma, that person who has the serene mind, quickly he becomes established. So that's the meaning here. He is all the viparita bhavana, he has any distinction he has between himself and the Atma, all that disappears. And when there is serenity, there also completely follows the steadiness of that buddhi, that wisdom, and from that comes the creation, cessation of avidya, which is opposite of this buddhi, and from that results in destruction of all the sorrows. Because we looked at previously, when one has that realization, the happiness is beyond anything that one could experience through these worldly objects, right? So here, that person, his all destruction, the destruction of all the sorrows comes through that, because those sorrows are result of avidya, this delusion that has saying that I am different from Atma, right? So when one has that realization, such a person's all sorrows are disappeared, and though this is the sequence, still the statement about the serenity having the power of destroying all the sorrows is made again so that one may put a greater effort of serenity. So because even though here it says that purity of mind comes at the end, even though that's said, what we are trying to understand here in these shlokas, Bhagavan is saying is, even those who do not reach that state, right, they can try that. They have to try that, and through that it will get. So that's the effort. So again, all these shlokas, when Arjuna asks these questions and we are looking at these attributes of that perfect sage who has realized all these things, is because one should try to follow that path, right? Then only you will get there. It's like anything we do in life, right? So we always try to mimic somebody else who has done, whether it's good or bad. It may be you are a good tennis player, so you look at some of the videos or a coach or whatever it is, somebody great who has done how they have done. If you are a footballer, you do something. If you are a presenter, you do something else. If you are anything you do, you look up to somebody who has done it greatly, right? So you look up to them and then you try to follow that. Same thing here. When we are try to do in life, our day-to-day life, we try to follow, whether it is knowingly or unknowingly, we try to do something to different. You may be a student. You try to do like the other student is doing, right? Learning how they are learning, how they are studying, and you try to follow that. You try to get better like them, right? So it's always like that. So when it is like that, why not try something related to realization, which is the purpose of our life, right? So that's what Bhagavan is explaining here. Different things one should do, how that perfect stage looks like. So at least we can take one or two of these things and then start practicing, and then that will benefit. So again, in the next shloka, Bhagavan explains what happens, what is the merits of benefits of this having that serenity of mind. So that prasada, Bhagavan's grace in that realized state. He says, Nasti buddhi rayuktasya, na chayuktasya bhavana, na cha bhavayatah shantir, ashantyasya kuda sukham. So for that unsteady, there is no wisdom and there is no meditation, and there is no meditation for that unsteady man, and for an unmeditable man there is no peace. How can there be happiness with one without peace? So here I said Bhagavan explains the merits or the benefits of having that peace, but he talks it negatively. What is there for the person who does not have this peace, right? So he explains, so when you're saying what is there for one who does not have, that means what is, you can look at what is the benefit of it, right? So da means not, asti means is, buddhi means intellect, ayuktasya means not united, na means not, cha means and, ayuktasya means not united, bhavana means contemplation, na means again nor, cha means and, abha abhavyakta abhavayatah means for the not united, shanti means peace, ashantyasya means unpeaceful, of the unpeaceful, kuta means where, sukham means happiness. So here Bhagavan explains of the unsteady, for the one who does not have concentrated mind, there is no buddhi, there is no wisdom with regard to the nature of Atma, with regard to nature of the self. And there is no bhavana, meditation. Bhavana is meditation, the earnest longing for the knowledge of that Atma, right? So he is always, so constant urge. So bhavana here means constant urge, the longing to have that continuous remembrance of the knowledge of Brahman, which again comes in the mind from hearing the great Upanishads sayings, right? So that bhavana that comes in the mind. So having that constant urge, that bhavana, there is no such bhavana, that constant urge in that person of that unsteady man. And similarly, abhavayatah, so of that unmeditative man, who is ardently desire of the knowledge, who does not have any desire for this self-realization, there is no peace, restraint, there is no shanti, there is no restraint of his senses. And how can there be happiness for him? Wow. And so kuta, so sukham, so for him, how can there be happiness? And the one who is without peace. So because there is no peace for him, how can there be happiness for him? That's what the meaning of this shloka is. So again, for the one who has not conquered his mind, there is no wisdom, and again, which goes from the Vichara, like Shravana, Manana, and things like that on the Vedanta. And because of the absence of that wisdom for the unsteady man, there is no meditation in the form of Nididhyasana and so on. Then again, there is no. So again, here we need to look at no to all these things. So he does not have all those things. So he does not have he does not have when he has not conquered the mind, he does not, this buddhi does not arise, and he does not have those meditative mind, and he does not have in that atma, he does not meditate, and he does not have, because of that, he does not have peace. So kuta sukham means, again, how can there be happiness? That is, the happiness here talked about is that supreme happiness, that's realization, that moksha of the one who does not have peace. So ashantyasya. So one who does not have peace, how can there be realization for that person? So that indeed is the happiness which consists of freedom of the senses from the thirst of enjoyment of the objects, and not the thirst of objects is misery, because that's to be sure. So here Shankaracharya explains that the sense of freedom from the senses, from the thirst of enjoyment of the objects, is the happiness. So the implication is that as long as the thirst exists, there is no possibility even a little bit of having such a happiness. So indriyanam hi vishaya seva trishnatah nivrittir yatat sukham na vishaya trishna dukkhameva hi sa na trishnayam satyam sukhasya gandhamatram upad apyupadyate ityartha. So when there is that kind of desire, that senses longing for that objects of enjoyment, he does not have any possibility of that happiness. So now Bhagavan explains sense restraint conduces to this steady knowledge. Next, he explains that the controlling these senses results in the steady knowledge. So because the question here might come, why it is being stated that a man without concentration does not possess wisdom, that intellect, why he does not possess. That's why Bhagavan explains in the next shloka, indriyanam hi charatam yanmanonu vidhiyate tadasya harati prajnam vayurnavam ivambasi. So because the mind which follows in the wake of wandering senses, that mind carries away his wisdom, like mind diverting mind, like the wind diverting the boat on the waters. Okay, so it like the wind diverting on the boat of the waters, it moves away. So indriyana means the senses, he means indeed, charatam means roaming, yat means which, mana means mind, anuvidyate means becomes constantly engaged, tat means that, asya means of that, harati means carries away, prajna means intellect, vayu means wind, navam means boat, iva means as, ambasi means on the water. So we will look at this shloka next time when we gather. We got another 6, 7 shlokas to go through in this adhyaya. So hopefully in the coming weeks we can complete.